Patient Educators Update, where we talk about patient education in a clinical environment. My name is Chuck Jones. I'm with Synergy Broadcast, and as always, we are joined by our trusty expert, Fran London. Hi, Fran.
Hi, Chuck.
For those of you that may not be familiar with Fran, she is the Patient Education Specialist at Phoenix Children's Hospital in Phoenix, Arizona. And she is the author of the book, No Time to Teach. And this is the source of many of the topics that we have on the Patient Educators Update. And today we are continuing part 2 of our discussion on how to teach a group. We talked about in our last episode the differences between teaching a group versus an individual and some of the skills that you need and the types of groups that you might face. Now today, Fran, we want to focus on group session activities, and you had a specific list of topics called discussion tips to design group session activities. So we want to focus there today. And I'll just mention a couple of them and let you comment and tell us what's the best way to deal with those. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. The first one is keep in mind you're in front of the group right now and they're there for a very specific reason, and you're there to give them some information and get them in a position where they walk out feeling they have something they didn't have before, that they can take better care of themselves, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So the first one is, don't ask questions that ask the learner to repeat information you just taught them. Now that's a mouthful, but why don't you want to ask them to rabbit back? So that's almost like teach back.
That's like teach back, exactly. Yeah. And it's not the best use of a group.
Okay.
The key to using a group is, first of all, you give them the information that you want them to have, the content, in some kind of handout, so that you know they walk out with the resource right there, so you don't have to worry about, oh no, I forgot to cover blank. Mm-hmm. So you have all your information in the handout. So the focus of the conversation is really to find out where they're at, what they're thinking, and to get them to talk to one another and bring out questions from one another.
Okay.
So you basically start with asking them questions that you don't know the answer to. You ask them questions like, you know, what concerns you most about what you're going into? What bothers you most about what's happening? And then that will help give you topics to discuss.
Okay, that's interesting, because they then set the roadmap for you as the facilitator to guide the group and get where you want to be.
Yeah, you're a facilitator and not a teacher.
Yeah.
You're not lecturing. You're really working the group. So you have to be very comfortable being spontaneous and going with the flow and managing how things go.
Yeah, so if your plan for the group was to tell them the 10 most important things they needed to know about knee replacement, this is not the right venue for that.
That should be in the handout.
Yeah.
And then when you talk, you could refer to the handout and say, see, it's right there. And there are some other things on there too.
Yeah.
So you can incorporate it into the process, but help them feel comfortable with what's going to happen.
Okay. All right. Now, obviously, when you're in a group environment, you're going to want to do some group activities because you want them to be communicating and feel comfortable to do so. And, excuse me, one of your tips is to start group activities with 2 to 4 people and then move to a larger group. So that means you want them to you want them to pair up and either discuss something or share stories or something like that. Tell us more about that.
Exactly. One thing I sometimes do, if it's possible and relevant, is start the whole session with a little video, you know, a 3-minute video. Mm-hmm. Show them the video and then ask them to discuss some aspect of that video with the person next to them. It's safe, it's comfortable, it gets them comfortable starting to talk.
Okay. Now, in terms of the questions that you want to ask, my guess is you don't want to ask a lot of closed questions that respond with yes or no. You want open-ended, right?
Yeah, and things about feelings and concerns and things they've heard, and what do they think is going to be a barrier, a problem in the long term? What is it we can help facilitate now?
Yeah, and you know, with the the way medical information is on the internet, and we know that there are lots of sites that don't have good information, and there are lots that do, and you're probably going to have some people who are very tech-oriented in the group and maybe some not so much. It might make some sense to try to draw that out to find out who are the people that are doing their own research versus the people that aren't. And there, I would almost draw the conclusion ahead of time that those people who are proactively searching on the internet will tend to dominate the conversation if you're not careful.
It could happen, yeah.
Yeah.
If they feel like they know a lot already and they want to share it. And if they're sharing good information, that might be okay.
Yeah.
It will be better heard by the audience if it's coming from someone else in the audience than it will from the instructor.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So if you can, in some of your opening questions, find out, who's a big researcher and who's not, that can give you some pretty good firepower as you're going through the discussion about various forms of research, and also find out where their sources are.
Yes.
Just to make sure that they're not saying, well, sniff this red pepper and your life will be better, because there are those sites that will do that.
Oh, a lot of them.
Yeah. Let's see. Here's one. You talk about activities should ground the topic in the learners' lives. How do you do that?
When you get to hear about what their concerns are, you get to know whether, if it's a knee replacement surgery, are there people who have 2-story homes and their bedrooms are upstairs?
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that you want to make sure you address. So find out what the connections are and go with them and flow with them.
Okay. Let me go back to my thought about the person that's the active researcher and potentially could dominate the conversation. Do you have any tips on not letting the person dominate the conversation, like asking for volunteers and especially not calling on that person?
You get that skill over time
Mm-hmm.
with practicing, and some of it is indeed asking for other people to have an opinion also, so that you can bring them out. One other tip I just remembered, which is off the topic, but if nobody says anything, wait for a full 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just assume nobody's going to say anything, because sometimes people just need to gather their thoughts and know exactly what sentence they're going to say before they open their mouth. So it takes them some time to formulate that. So give them time. But for the person who's dominating, I would play it by ear. And, if the person says a specific fact, then take that opportunity to talk about that fact and to open it up to other people. That's one way to use the facilitation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess it would make some sense to try to get as many people in the room involved in the conversation. There's a couple of ways to do that. Number one, talking back and forth with the facilitator. But then in the small group stuff, I'm guessing it makes sense for the facilitator to wander about the room and listen in on some of these conversations, because then there are things you can bring out to the group, right?
Exactly. That's part of the skill.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see.
Another thing you could do if somebody's dominating the conversation
Mm-hmm.
is to take that as a segue to move into small group conversations.
Okay.
So that's another way to deal with it if you have trouble confronting the person.
Yeah, I like that. How do you feel about just calling out someone? I call out's the wrong term. Just asking somebody how they feel about something in the group. Let's say you've got somebody who's just kind of not opening their mouth at all, and just directly asking them a question.
From what I've read, that is not the best thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Adult learners don't like that. They want to feel safe. It's not safe if you think you're going to get called on. This is not a test. This is an opportunity for them to get involved and learn something.
Yeah.
Some people are perfectly content with listening, and they don't need to say anything, and I would not call on somebody. I would not force everybody to say something.
Mm-hmm.
I would let it happen the way it happens.
Yeah, and I think that's a prudent way to approach it, because you're talking generally about some fairly sensitive personal issues, and if people don't feel like sharing, that's okay. The important thing is, are you sharing enough information where it looks like they're learning and going to get to where they feel comfortable and confident about what they've got to do after the fact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, as a facilitator, over time you develop the skill to pay attention, look at if they feel really uncomfortable, are they looking anxious, these people who are not participating, find out what's going on and try to make everybody as comfortable as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. Well, those are some good tips. And I'll remind folks, if they didn't catch the first episode of this particular topic, teaching to a group, it would be published right before this one, and I'll have a link back to that. But you should go there and listen to our discussion there, where we talked about the different types of groups and some of the key skills that are necessary to make these kinds of things successful. And obviously encourage them to get your book and read it, and it's on page 123, How to Teach a Group. And so Fran, I'll use that as a way to close out this portion of the show. Why don't you tell folks how to find you?
I have a blog at www.notimetoteach.com, and I'm on Twitter at notimetoteach.
Okay, cool. And I also see you on Pinterest and Facebook and others. So if you're on a particular social network, if you'll just type in No Time to Teach as a general rule, you'll find out whether Fran is there or not. And I would encourage you to connect, because she's got great information. And for those of you that are chief nursing officers or in charge of staff education, you can get Fran's book in bulk by contacting her publisher, Pritchett & Hull. Their website is p-h.com, and you can get a sizable discount on a bulk purchase, and that's a good way to practice some of your group teaching skills. And also, if you're interested in adding video and video on demand into your toolkit for patient educators, you can contact us at synergybroadcast.com, or you can call us, and the phone number's on the website. And you can also Google search MMDS, or Medical Media Delivery System, and that's where you can find us. And we appreciate your time and attention today. And Fran, I will see you next time. Thanks very much.
Bye, Chuck.
Bye-bye.